stuck in the mail. Hello, it's the Stuck in the Mail podcast. It is episode 35. Tell your mama and your papa and your podriaba. Tell Coco Roby Show. Je suis la grande zombie. We are talking about Dr. John. Gris, Gumbo Ya.
The Night Tripper. Beautiful.
Dr.
Beautiful.
John, the Night Tripper. So, Casey, you had heard this before?
I have a copy of it, as I do of many of Dr. John's, and I'll share with you a little memory. I can remember being in Mendocino on the coast, one of your favorite spots, and not this album, and I actually don't know which one, but holding in my hands and not owning any Dr. John and just giving a long, long, long debate and pause on whether or not I should get one. And I didn't get one that day, but it's too bad, because Dr. John is great.
You know, it took me a long time to come around to Dr. John. I love New Orleans music. I've just come to realize that. Maybe it's in my 40s or something, but I guess before, I don't know, maybe it's because he was on the Last Waltz, and I kind of associated him with like the band and Eric Clapton, and I don't know, it just kind of seemed like classic rock, like dad stuff, you
A
know?
little bit, but now that we're getting older.
And I mean, I'm squarely in the demographic, I guess. But
Exactly.
but you know, he's synonymous with New Orleans, like many bands, like many great artists, like the Meters and you know,
Yes.
the Neville
Who are
brothers. I mean,
featured on two of his albums.
yeah, and they all know each other and they all respected each other and played with each other, and so it's just a really cool scene. I mean, what an amazing city, what an amazing region to have this completely unique identity, which everything from culinary to musical to just the whole swamp voodoo vibe. It's just you
Yeah.
have to love it. It's New
It's
Orleans,
a
man.
it's a real blend, and where you get those blends or where you get that, that those nuances and those interesting things. And I don't know if you want to do a super brief history. I can do a mega brief history. Do you know anything about Acadians, as they're originally called?
Sure, they came down from Canada, right?
Yeah, they got the boot. It's just so odd, right? And then, of course, you have New Orleans existing already as, kind of the swampy South. And then you got these French that are moved down there. The slang, of course, being Cajun, formerly Acadian. And it just is this crazy mix, crazy, strange thing. Uh,
Mouth of the Mississippi. So I mean, it's all these cultures coming together where all the trade was happening.
yep, yep. And of course, some trade that, not the kind that, there's, of course, a lot of slavery in the area
Right.
and everything. And that's where we get this whole other kind of influence on this music of Dr. John. He was actually named after a voodoo Haitian, I believe, priest of the area. And we get all those kind of influences that also move into Texas. Like, you got your hoodoo voodoo and your mojo hand and your gree, which is like an amulet, and all that real interesting, folkloric, his own religion, mythology, and all that interesting stuff. Not stuff that I know a lot about, but I have been to New Orleans twice, once as a kid and once as an adult. And it felt a lot more like going to Europe or something. You can't
Sure.
say that it doesn't feel that way, even just the influx of the French language or whatever. But Doc John originally, I guess I'm going to lead some of this a little bit of background. Mac Rebenak, am I saying that right? Mac Rebenak?
I think so.
He actually comes from a real musician background, like just kind of formal musician by 16 almost. I got to find his first 45, which is apparently they call it a Bo Diddley Beat ripoff, but it's actually a little more. It's got a sax on it. It's called Storm Warning.
Mhm.
And he would actually end up in LA and with the Wrecking Crew. So shout out to another
Yeah,
episode here.
that was
Name
pretty
that one.
cool. The Wrecking Crew. Yeah. Well, so yeah, he did Mac grew up in New Orleans. So this runs deep. This isn't a put on, you know. Um,
Right.
he performed with Professor Longhair, who was a pianist, and apparently his Professor Longhair was a big influence on Dr. John because Dr. John started as a guitarist. Um,
Okay.
his ring finger or one of his fingers on his fretting hand was injured by a gunshot at a club in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
So then he had to
Wild.
pivot and he started playing piano. He started, or I mean, he could still play guitar, but this that changed from what I understand. Then he began
Yeah.
playing primarily piano in a style inspired by
Yeah.
Professor Longhair. Um, he ran into trouble in New Orleans, drugs, apparently ran a brothel, allegedly.
All kinds
Uh,
of fun stuff.
New Orleans, man. But
Yes.
yes, then he moved to LA and became a session musician with the Wrecking Crew. It's weird how the song "I Got You, Babe" from Sonny and Cher figures into all this.
Well, I believe he's on the recording. Is that not correct?
If he's not on the recording, he was at least in their band. And I'll tell
Yeah.
you who was there. That was Harold Batiste. So Harold Batiste is
Oh.
somebody who was who Mac knew from New
Mhm.
Orleans. He was an arranger, and he was the one who actually arranged "I Got You, Babe." Like he's on the credits and everything. Well,
Hmm.
best I can tell, this whole Gris album is really a collaboration between Mac Rebenack and Harold Batiste, because Harold
Okay.
Batiste is the one who did a lot of these arrangements, especially of the kind of far out stuff on it that's a little bit more, uh, I don't know what you would describe. You know, those tracks.
Traditionally Cajun. I don't know. The
Um,
dances, I guess. eh?
yeah,
There's
that's the
some
ones with all the percussion and like the chanting, and I mean, it's some wild
Mhm.
stuff. But yeah,
It
so
really-
so apparently, Mac also played on Frank Zappa's Mothers of Invention Freak
Yeah.
Out album.
Yeah. Amazing album. Hope to one day review on here. The First Mothers.
Yeah.
When Frank is just a member of the band, kind of, you know.
Well, and as the story goes, I guess Mac wasn't feeling it and he walked out and Zappa later did a parody of Dr. John, like in a
Probably that would make sense.
like in a live performance. I don't think they were I don't know if it was a loving parody or if it was like a taking the piss situation.
Gotcha. Well, that
But
sounds like Zappa.
right. But yeah, so somehow Mac Rebenack decided to, for some reason, create this Dr. John persona. I think he was kind of fascinated by the whole voodoo thing. He created this character that was inspired by a 19th century voodoo doctor. So this was someone
Yep.
who would go around and sell, potions basically. Um,
hmm
he's got the medicine to cure all y'all's ills.
Yeah.
He's got remedies
He
of
was
every description.
he was super inspired by, the medicine shows, and as well as like minstrel shows, which we're not going into that one, but just of the time there in New Orleans, the setting and the place, even in, the early 60s is very different than a lot societally and civilization and everything. I can only imagine like New Orleans does feel very different and the influences and where they're bumping into each other are much stronger.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
trying to give a feel for our audience. I'm sure most people are familiar with New Orleans. When I went there to share a small story when I was an adult, we saw a dark storm cloud. And by the time we got off the highway and underneath an underpass, there was water up to our waist.
Wow.
And then the whole thing drained within hours. We were walking around in it, but I mean, it's wild. The whole place is, it's like Amsterdam or whatever in the Netherlands. It's very low lying, and there's a lot of water going in and out, and you know,
I believe it's
interesting
actually,
place.
isn't it below sea level?
Yeah, I believe so too.
Yeah.
Um, it was a swampy place, man.
Well,
Tough to stay dry, I guess.
here's a pretty good Wikipedia paragraph about the origins of Dr. John, the character. All
hmm
right. Quoting Wikipedia. As a young man, Rebenack was interested in New Orleans voodoo, and in Los Angeles, he developed the idea of the Dr. John persona for his old friend Ronnie Barron. based on the life of Dr. John, a Senegalese prince, conjure man, herb doctor, and spiritual healer who came to New Orleans from Haiti. This man
Yep,
kept
that's
an
the guy I mentioned.
yeah, so this man kept an assortment of snakes and lizards, along with embalmed scorpions and animal and human skulls, and sold gris voodoo amulets which supposedly protect the wearer from harm.
Yep, yep, that hoodoo voodoo man.
And so, as the story goes, Dr. Mac Rebenak originally wanted his friend Ronnie Barron to be Dr. John. But then when
Right,
Barron
right.
dropped out, Mac Rebenak was like, all right, I'll become Dr. John. So, he didn't seem to have a problem with channeling this, Senegalese prince. It was the 60s, man.
That's right. And he found a niche, at least to the popularity and success that he was able to achieve. Um, that's for sure. And we should dive in. We should start on this album here. There's not a lot of tracks, but they're exciting.
Well, and just to give you an idea of how the album came about, so remember we talked about Harold Batiste. So he was working with Sonny and Cher in the studio, and apparently they had some extra studio time because Sonny and Cher were off filming a movie. And so I guess Harold Batiste was like, "Hey, Mac, come on, let's use the studio time and come in and make some swamp music."
Hmm.
Because basically, they were going back to what they knew. Like they're sitting here making, "I Got You, Babe," and this was like their fun little side project. Like, "Hey, we got some studio time. Let's go in and mess around." That's the impression I get.
Right.
And
Well,
so the
Cher must have
album,
been a fan.
what?
Cher must have been a fan. She actually covered "I Walk on Gilded Splinters," the last track on here.
And so this album came out in 1968. So it could be classified as Southern psychedelic voodoo if you're into that sort of thing.
Yep.
Uh, and Harold Batiste, like I said, Harold Batiste was arranged a lot of these songs, especially like the Dance Kalinda and the Croaker Coolbeyond, the ones where you don't even really hear Dr. John on them. Those are the ones
Right.
I feel like Batiste is taking the lead.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So
Yeah,
tell me
Croaker Port
your
Bouillon.
impressions here. Tell me what tracks you responded to.
It's definitely the kind of album you gotta give a few spins. Um, there's, as the kids say these days, it's more of a vibe. Um, I really like this album, and I haven't heard his other albums as much as I'd like to have. Uh, but this one stands alone as being the most, voodoo, the most New Orleans, I think, and the least kind of like, more just him and a piano, kind of Van Morrissey or Van Morrison. I just said Van Morrissey. Or, I always conjure up ideas of like Tom Waits, who certainly like Rain Dogs would be a good example of a kind of a alcohol infused kind of voodoo one for him. But
Sure.
yeah, this is kind of the real Dr. John album, you know? This is I mean, I like the dance songs or the Danse songs. The second, the one that's almost exotica, Danse Kalinda Badum.
With all the crazy
Uh,
percussion on it.
yeah, it gives me Gabor Szabo feels. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's a Hungarian gypsy jazz guitarist. Um, I really like Danse Fambo. I like the badoom, 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 and like just snorting in that. All the song ones are great too, but I do kind of orient myself more with the background vibe ones. Like, seems like it'd be perfect things to throw a few on a like a playlist for like a weird social drinking affair of some sort, you know? Um,
Yeah,
there's a
maybe
real good time and place for some of these.
yeah, maybe like a social occasion during a thunderstorm. That'd be the time to put it on.
Yeah, all kinds of things, maybe a fun. I mean, we're doing this for some reason on St. Patrick's Day, and I'm nearly 10 months sober, but even I'm like, man, I got some good NA cocktails, like something. I need something here.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's in the spirit of things. And of
Well,
course, New Orleans is known for their drinking.
and I'm with you on just looking here at the track listing. I mean, there are some more tradition. I don't know if traditional is the right word. More conventional tracks like Mama
Sure.
Roo and Jump Sturdy.
Mamaru.
Mama
Yep.
Roo. Um,
Mamaru.
and I really like his relaxed kind of singing style on that one in particular. She was a queen of the red, white, and blue. And but I really love the weird ones. I love Dance Kalinda
Yep.
Badoom. I love Croaker Coulbillon.
That might be the one where I'm like, maybe. I mean, it's a bit shrill, like the female voices on it. I mean, it's like that one's a bit much. It's getting into
Yeah,
some weird zap territory or something.
yeah, that's probably
Something.
one that annoyed a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean it's a good mid track in the 7 song playlist here. That is Gris. I wonder how often people call this album Gris Gris. Probably all the time. Gris by the way, is like the voodoo amulets,
Yep,
right?
yep, exactly.
Um,
Yeah, it's interesting. Croaker Coulbillon is only attributed to Batiste.
okay,
So
gotcha.
that's why it's maybe a little out there.
Have you ever heard the Dixie Cups? This old 60s girl group. They do Iko Iko. And Iko Iko, I know, is one that Dr. John covers later on a different album, but it's very much that same feel. Bare bones, almost like a live, unmiked feel, like some of the dances on here.
Oh yeah.
Um,
That's a New Orleans classic, Iko Iko.
yeah, yes. That is a traditional. That's like probably Haitian or something, but yeah,
Yep.
really
Yep.
cool.
Yep. And yeah, there's a lot of those songs that you'll hear all these New Orleans artists do a version of, like the Neville brothers have a really good version of Iko Iko. And you're right, Dr. John
Hmm.
did do that song on a later album. Just such joyful, I love unique subgenres of music, and this one is.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Yeah,
this is the one that takes you to the swamp, and then later on, he would do a lot more of what we would know as like, oh, I know that song. That's a like New Orleans
yeah.
classic. Whereas this stuff is
Yeah.
just real out there.
It is, but when he teams up with the Meters, it's as good, if not better, because the Meters are one of the greatest, instrumental soul funk groups there is, and and they're perfect with him. It's
Yeah.
same environment, they know what to do. But yeah, Dr. John in later years, just kind of him and piano, more or less, not as exciting. Kind of getting farther away from this idea, this theme, his roots. But I mean, still amazing artist. Um, Also, I think we need to address this. This is very important, and I hinted at it before. Is he or is he not Dr. Teeth from the Muppets? Because I swear he is. Very important here.
Fair to say that was the inspiration. That's
And
good.
so that would mean that Janice is Janis Joplin and Animal is John Bonham, or where are we at here? Where
Yeah,
are we at with
mixed.
the musical mayhem or
I feel
whatever it
like
is?
Animal is like Bonham mixed with Keith Moon. There's probably more Keith Moon
Yeah,
in there than anything.
maybe so, actually.
Yeah,
Bonzo, right?
I think what I love about this one in particular, maybe because it's the very first attempt, is it feels like they're trying to get away with something. It's like the sneaking into the studio because we got the time. Let's do our thing. I love that about it, and you never quite recapture that. And we have to talk about the final track on this album, I Walk on Gilded Splinters, which for my money is the best song on the album. It has a certain something, does it not?
Oh, it does. It does.
You gotta love the harmonica bass like lead, that descending, and I just love the back the lady singers on this one. Man, they are killing it.
Yeah, I believe the Cake is the girl group. I looked it up really quick. Not really a well-known group, not even by me, but I know a lot of 60s girl groups. But um,
Just
so
amazing vocals.
mhm. So the covers of this, I listened to the one before this that I really wanted to hear, which is Humble Pies. I don't know if you know anything about Humble Pie. It's one of those kind of dollar bin records. But Humble Pie, which is Steve Marriott's band, post Small Faces, is one of those bands that in England gets thrown around with Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, just, as amazing guitarists and stuff. And the other fun thing is that Peter Frampton is on their first three albums,
Oh,
and as
cool.
well as on the live album with Walk on Gilded Splinters. And
Nice.
I'm starting to learn Steve Marriott a little more. I've always liked Small Faces, but man, this guy, he can really play. And Peter Frampton on it is kind of neat too.
It's just got that great, like it makes sense that any guitar band would want to cover this song because it has that great groove to it. Um,
Right.
have you ever wondered what Gilded Splinters are all about? No?
Uh, it would seem to make more sense if it was like walking on hot coals or something. Seems a little more voodoo to me, but Gilded Splinters, I'm not even going to make an attempt to decipher that.
Well, here's what Coco Robichaux had to say. In voodoo, they call the gilded splinters the points of a planet. Mystically, they appear like little gilded splinters, like little gold, like fire that holds still. They're different strengths at different times. I guess it ties in with astrology and influencing the energy. That's what that's about.
Hmm. Okay.
I walk on gilded
Very
splinters.
interesting.
Yeah,
Very
great, great,
interesting.
great way to end the album. Pretty amazing. Well, so we've kind of covered anything you wanted to say about the songs before we move on.
I think possibly Gumbo Ya Ya, as well as I Walk on Gilded Splinters, might be the best two.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm with you.
but I was going to say there's a Cher cover of I Walk on Gilded Splinters, and you haven't heard that either, right?
No, I think I need to.
No.
So just
Yeah,
to
me
give you
neither. So homework.
just a little bit of what post Gree Dr. John here. I've been kind of trying to listen to some of his other albums around that time. Man, Sun, Moon, and Herbs, incredible. I had never heard it before. It is probably as good as this, if not better. It is amazing and it has this kind of feel. Dr. John's Gumbo is the one where he really went into the New Orleans classics, Iko Iko and all that. Some really
Okay.
great, like that's a fun album. If you ever want to just play some fun New Orleans music, Gumbo is a great one. You mentioned the funk albums with the meters. He, of course, did the song for Princess and the Frog. Did you know that the Disney movie? Did you know that he did the Popeyes chicken jingle?
I believe it. I believe it.
Love that chicken from Popeyes. And did you know? Well, you probably did because you know these albums. But the festival Bonnaroo comes from his album Decisively Bonnaroo.
Right. And that's the other meters one. It's that one, and I can see the cover. But yeah, I'm not super versed in his albums, but I have them all, and I've also sold a lot of them, but kept copies because I came across them for a while, quite a bit. That one that you were mentioning, the Herbs one, that one has Clapton and Mick
Mick
Jagger on it
Jagger.
too, which is
Yeah,
noteworthy for guest appearance.
it's crazy good. I might have to do a Dr. John, what do you call it? Reprise and cover that one.
Anthology.
Yeah. Maybe a future episode. Look for that one.
I'll be picking them up. I got my first record show possibly coming up in 2 weeks, so I'm itching. I'm itching to sell and buy some records.
Well,
And
tell me
on
what you
that
got.
note,
Tell me what you got coming next.
all right, well, we're kind of yeah, we're kind of staying with the same kind of vibe, more or less, somewhat more rock oriented, but definitely kind of got a southern feel to it. Maybe this time more Memphis. This is an album that was suggested to me by a friend online by the name of All the Records. That's with periods in the middle of those words. And he's like, told me, man, if you like Big Star, you have got to check out. I don't even want any glare there. You've got to check out. That's right. The one, the only, the hot dogs.
The hot dogs.
Maybe it was the name, but whatever. They were on Ardent, which is a Stax subsidiary. And like Big Star, who was on Ardent, they were a extremely talented, I don't know if it's the recording studio or what, but extremely amazing, remarkable, incredibly underrated. They're like a big star that doesn't have the big star status that we have now
Okay.
for big star because everyone now who knows anything about music is like, oh yeah, big star, Alex Chilton. Oh yeah, maybe they're also one of the replacements or they just Big Star is ubiquitous. Their albums are like $500,000 and everyone loves them. But the hot dogs, no one cares about the hot dogs. But I'll tell you what, they're all wrong. Because the minute I played this album, I was absolutely floored.
Man, I can't
Floored.
wait. Is this on streaming?
It is not. It is on YouTube. And
Okay.
don't you worry, because you'll be getting a copy. I'm gonna have to
Oh,
put
nice.
that in the mail today. Okay?
Are we
Because it's a
gonna?
$20 album. It's a normal album, like if you can find it. So
So on
this
the
is
next.
kind of the closest to prismatic we've got
Oh yeah,
again.
prismatic vibes. All right. Are we gonna eat wieners during the next episode?
I like a good Frank.
I do too. I feel like hot dogs in general are very underrated, not just the band.
They are. Not in Europe. Everyone likes meat in a tube over there.
I love them, man.
Take it from Anthony Bourdain. Yeah,
All
they're
right.
great.
Cool, cool.
Well,
Well, looking forward to it.
okay, cool.